Times when you look across the dinner table at the love of your life. Dr. Glenn Wilson is at and you can hear McCall David Chan's full report about Israel's Arabs on crossing continents tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock. Now, there are times when you look across the dinner table at the love of your life and wonder what on earth it was that attracted you to each other in the first place. Was it his dancing blue eyes, broad shoulders, command of current events, or ability to crack you up with his jokes? Or was it just something indefinable, a certain scent or an ability to do everything you can't? Can we ever know? Well, Dr. Glenn Wilson is an honorary senior lecturer in psychology at King's College London and the author of The Science of Love. Dr. Helen Fisher is an anthropologist and the author of Why Him, Why Her. Helen, you seem to have identified 4 basic personality types. How did you identify them?
Well, first of all, they're really not types, they're scales, they're brain systems, and we've got a lot of chemicals in the brain, but there's only some chemicals that code for traits of personality, and 4 basic ones are dopamine, serotonin, testosterone, and estrogen and oxytocin.
Helen, you seem to have identified 4 basic personality types. How did you identify them?
Well, first of all, they're really not types, they're scales, they're brain systems, and we've got a lot of chemicals in the brain, but there's only some chemicals that code for traits of personality, and 4 basic ones are dopamine, serotonin, testosterone, and estrogen and oxytocin. So I really scanned all of the biological literature to see which traits, which constellations of traits are personality types.
How did you identify them?
Well, first of all, they're really not types, they're scales, they're brain systems, and we've got a lot of chemicals in the brain, but there's only some chemicals that code for traits of personality, and 4 basic ones are dopamine, serotonin, testosterone, and estrogen and oxytocin. So I really scanned all of the biological literature to see which traits, which constellations of traits are oxytocin. So I really scanned all of the biological literature to see which traits, which constellation basic ones are dopamine, serotonin, testosterone, and estrogen and oxytocin. So I really scanned all of the biological literature to see which traits, which constellations of traits are associated together. And I created a questionnaire. It's now been taken by 7 million people in 39 countries to see to what degree in treatment chemicals in the brain, but there's only some chemicals that code for traits of personality, and 4 basic ones are dopamine, serotonin, testosterone, and estrogen and oxytocin. So I really scanned all of the biological literature to see which traits, which constellations of traits are associated together, and I created a questionnaire. It's now been taken by 7 million people in 39 countries to see to what degree you express these 4 basic brain systems.
So how do you reckon they work together?
Well, what I did was they're called the Explorer, the Builder, I just made up these terms, the Explorer, the Builder, the Director, and the Negotiator, and I watched among 40,000 people. I really developed these personality styles, and then I watched among 28,000 people who was drawn to whom on a dating site. For example, people who are very expressive of the dopamine system tend to be novelty-seeking, risk-taking, curious, creative, spontaneous, often very irreverent, very active, energetic, and they're drawn to people like themselves. They want people who will go adventuring with them. And this isn't just climbing mountains. This could be somebody who goes to the opera with you or goes to the theater with you. People who are energetic go for people who are energetic.
And how does your system, Glenn, work for testing romantic compatibility?
Well, together with John Cousins, I devised a compatibility quotient which looked beyond the immediate chemistry of attraction, which can often be a trap to get you hooked to the wrong person prematurely, when further down the line you discover that you have nothing in common. It works on the principle of similarity in a number of key traits that are known to be important for long-term compatibility. Will you still be happy with this person when the rosy red specks are busted and you're looking to a companionate kind of relationship?
So how similar is it to what Helen's developed? I mean, would an explorer last with another explorer?
Well, absolutely. On traits like sexual permissiveness, for example, it's important that if you're a swinger, you have somebody of a similar disposition. You don't want to be together with somebody who insists on lifelong monogamy. It's just not going to work. and the same with adventurous activities. Either you'll go off and do them by yourself, or you will perhaps find a partner who will do them with you, and that would be better for a long-term relationship.
Doesn't that mean then, Helen, that it's about talking to the other person and exploring things together
It's about
to discover whether you share interests and traits, and it's more nurture than nature?
There's two parts of personality. Scientists divide personality into two basic categories. Your character, which is everything you grew up to learn and believe and think and do, and temperament, which are all the traits that do have some biological underpinnings. And I'm trying to add the biological aspect. I mean, we all know that you tend to fall in love with people when the timing is right, when, we fall in love with somebody from the same socioeconomic background, same general level of intelligence, same general level of good looks. But, we also will say, well, we had chemistry, and I wanted to get to the bottom of that. I mean, it's not just the explorer that goes with the explorer, but people who are very traditional go for people who are also conscientious, loyal, managerial, orderly, traditional like themselves. And so I'm just trying to add another part of the puzzle, but just to respond to something that Dr. Wilson said about, when that whole big flush of early infatuation wears off. I and my colleagues have put 49 people who were madly in love into a brain scanner to see to what degree you, to see what happens in the brain when you fall madly in love with somebody. And there's no question about it that once you've triggered that brain system for a romantic love, that person could have 3 heads and you wouldn't notice it.
But you'd be daft to marry them, wouldn't you, Glenn?
That's right.
Without having had the long conversation.
I think it is important to see past the chemistry. Most people meet and fall in love with somebody and marry them, and they only then start to think about, well, do we want children? Do we like pets? Can I stand the smell of smoke? All kinds of practical considerations which can make it very difficult to live with another person. So what I've suggested is, particularly if on the web you're meeting somebody at a distance, you can vet them for all these compatibility issues before you meet them to see whether the chemistry is going to be right for you.
You'd think that we'd have a better system built into us, really, wouldn't you? Because
I think we do have a pretty good system,
but essentially, pairing is about breeding, isn't it? It's about creating a safe environment with 2 people who work together to raise children safely. And it seems we're a bit haphazard.
I don't think so. I mean, a lot of people will say to me, well, I had a failed marriage. And I'll say, well, how many children did you have? And they said, well, we had 2 children, but then the marriage ended. Well, from a Darwinian perspective, the marriage wasn't a failure.
I think that's
because they had children who will grow up and have children. They passed on their DNA.
And that's right. From the reproductive point of view, of course, males are interested in voluptuous young females, or looking a bit like Pamela Anderson, perhaps. And females are looking for a dominant. I think that's
because they had children who will grow up and have children. They passed on their DNA.
And that's right. From the reproductive point of view, of course, males are interested in voluptuous young females, looking a bit like Pamela Anderson, perhaps. And females are looking for a dominant, successful male who will be a good and generous provider. And that's what people are pairing off. It's a short-term thing.
And how do you account for Madonna is a spouse? 22.
I wouldn't like to explain any individuals. Of course, as women become more powerful and acquire wealth, they can buy what they want, and if what they want is a toy boy, then good luck to them. That's not a problem.
But I think that they will continue to fall in love. I mean, there is data from around the world. People live for love, they kill for love, they die for love. At every part of culture, people are dying to fall in love and to build a real long-term relationship. And, that brings, what I'm trying to discover here is why